뭐 하는 게 어때요?
Why don't you? Why don't you come on over?
Why don't you come on over?
여기로 올래?
Why don't you take a walk?
산책하러 가는 게 어때?
Why don't you take a walk? Why don't you come with me?
Why don't you come with me?
저랑 같이 가실래요?
Why don't you ask for help?
도움을 요청하지 그래?
Why don't you ask for help? Why don't you just go away?
Why don't you just go away?
그냥 가버리지 그래요?
Why don't you take my advice?
왜 내 충고를 받아들이지 않니?
Why don't you take my advice? Why don't you order it online?
Why don't you order it online?
인터넷으로 주문하지 그래?
Why don't you do some exercise?
운동 좀 해보는 게 어때요?
Why don't you do some exercise? Why don't you give a try?
Why don't you give a try?
한번 해보는 게 어때?
Why don't you do the same?
같은 것을 하는 건 어때?
Why don't you do the same? Why don't you take a taxi?
Why don't you take a taxi?
택시를 타고 가는 건 어때?
Why don't you take a break?
왜 휴식을 취하지 않습니까?
Why don't you take a break? Why don't you look into it?
Why don't you look into it?
그거 좀 알아보지 그래요?
Why don't you buy another one?
하나 더 사는 게 어때요?
Why don't you buy another one? Why don't you have some coffee?
Why don't you have some coffee?
커피 좀 마시지 그러니?
Why don't you two stop arguing?
그만 좀 싸우지 그래요?
Why don't you two stop arguing?
Why don't you answer the phone?
Why don't you answer the phone?
왜 전화를 받지 않는 거예요?
Why don't you write it down?
왜 그걸 넌 적지 않니?
Why don't you write it down? Why don't you leave me alone?
Why don't you leave me alone?
날 가만히 놔두는 게 어때?
Why don't you give it a shot?
한번 해보는 게 어때?
Why don't you give it a shot?
구독, 좋아요, 알림 설정 꾹. 굿러닝 TV